Let's get more now on our top story. The plans by California Governor Gavin Newsom to sue the Trump administration after the US National Guard was deployed to clamp down on demonstrations. Claire Finkelstein is a professor of law at the University of Pennsylvania, and she joins us now. Professor Finkelstein, thank you for your time. And if we can go to this latest development first, the US military confirming it'll activate 700 Marines to the LA area. What do we understand the purpose or stated purpose of this to be?
There's no clear purpose whatsoever. The puzzling thing about it is that while there was a deployment of 2,000 California National Guard under federalized authority by the president, only about 300 of them are actually being utilized. Only about 300 of them are actually active right now in this situation, with the rest of them sort of standing by. So that shows that not all of the troops that have already been deployed are even being used. So the necessity for bringing in Marines is very unclear at this point. It's not as though they were already using all the capacity that they had and couldn't get control of the situation. It's puzzling, therefore, that the federal government made this decision.
Yeah, it's causing a lot of confusion there. Is it different in terms of the legal implications of that deployment of the National Guard at the weekend, this idea that Marines will now go in?
It is a little bit of a different status because the National Guard is typically under the control of state governors. And indeed, the governor of California, the state of California, has sued because the authority under which the troops were federalized and brought under the control of the federal government, according to California, didn't follow the law. According to the authority under which the troops were federalized, the governor should have been involved in deploying them, and that didn't happen. So the authority under which the troops were federalized has really almost never been used in this country. There was one incident under President Nixon under which it was, but normally this is not how troops are federalized. Normally there's an invocation of something called the Insurrection Act when presidents claim that there's been an insurrection. More frequently, there's a request on the part of a governor saying we can't get the situation under control. Our police are not able to be sufficiently effective here. We need you to federalize the National Guard, bring them under federal control, and to call them forth. Here you have a situation where the governor is not at all pleased about the federalization of his National Guard, and so they are opposing that.
And I will come back to that in a moment, that legal action. But if we put the question of deployment aside for just a moment, with the troops there, the National Guard already there and the Marines set to be, once they are there, what are they allowed to do and are they doing that?
So both the federalized California National Guard and the Marines that are being deployed will be constrained by what's called the Posse Comitatus Act. It's a big fancy name, but all it means is it's an act, a federal act, which is a very old statute dating back to the 19th century, which restricts federal troops from being involved in law enforcement. Law enforcement, anything to do with making arrests, anything to do with the deportations, anything to do with stopping people from burning cars. All of that should be in the hands of the LAPD, not federal troops. So they're really not allowed to act as law enforcement under these circumstances. That means that they're very restricted in what they can do. The Marines will be even more restricted potentially than the California National Guard, which have a very clear mandate under the president's executive order. But even so, they're restricted to protecting federal buildings, protecting ICE and Customs and Border Patrol officers, and ensuring that they can do their job. But they really can't help directly with law enforcement, and that'll be the same for the Marines.
And so this real-time situation is then that, I mean, the National Guard can be deployed because we know they are there as these legal questions about should they have been are considered. This legal action by California's Governor Gavin Newsom, I mean, how long would you expect that to take, and any idea of what the likely outcome would be on that?
It's very hard to tell because we really don't have any decided cases looking at how this goes. A court may say this is a political question. We don't feel we should be involved. Gavin Newsom will be asking for an injunction to get a court to halt this. I'd be very surprised if a court was willing to jump in and do that, but where an injunction is concerned, rather than a suit for money damages, a court, and it will be a request for an emergency injunction. A court could act very quickly if they agree with the governor. So they could, over the course of the night, now that the action has been filed, or anytime tomorrow in the next 24 hours, we could see a court taking action and saying, we agree with you. But again, it would be a very surprising action to see a federal trial judge say the president has overstepped his authority in calling forth federal troops in this manner. It would be a very interesting development if that occurs.
And are these protests spreading? And if we do see the deployment of these Marines, do you think we could see an escalation in these protests?
We might. So that's one of the claims that's been made with some justification. The protests did start out fairly peacefully as law-abiding demonstrations, and we've seen an escalation in that, and a lot of that escalation happened after the National Guard were federalized and called forth. And so arguably, well, it's very hard to tell what caused the escalation. Arguably, it was the presence of the National Guard themselves that made people want to oppose and that caused a lot of the furor. It certainly didn't help calm the situation. And knowing that there's a contest between California leadership and the federal government doesn't help the situation either. Usually, it's very important that you see your state leadership and the federal government acting together. So we see the politics playing out here in this kind of contest between the federal government and the state government. And unfortunately, of course, one is Republican and the other Democrat. And that's just our national politics playing out in this forum.